Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra, and this is the three keys to the Nebraska-Purdue game. Well, things got a little bit interesting, right, this week, and in a way that Nebraska fans probably didn't want or expect. The Huskers are going to have to learn to deal with adversity after coming off a 31-24 overtime loss Friday night to Illinois. Probably not a game that Nebraska expected to lose, but it did for very predictable reasons. I thought Illinois out-toughed Nebraska a little bit. I thought they outran the ball against the Huskers. I thought they made some plays late when Nebraska didn't. And so those are things that Nebraska has to correct going to West Lafayette, the first road game of the season at Ross-Ade Stadium. And I don't think there'll be a ton of fans there, maybe about a half-full stadium. You never know. It's supposed to be technically a sellout, but we'll get to the crowd in a minute. First, the things that Nebraska is probably trying to fix this week. One, they want to stop the run better. They want to tackle better. They want to strike the opposing ball carriers, not just try to strip the ball out, but really hit and play physical and play aggressive. I think that's something that's really important to Nebraska's staff, Matt Rule, defensive coordinator Tony White, whomever. And then I think on the other side of the ball, Nebraska likes where its passing game is with Dylan Raiola, but it wants to have a more concerted and committed run game, whether that's with Dante Dowdell or someone else. Nebraska doesn't want to have games where it only runs for 48 yards, even if that's a sack-adjusted total. Nebraska wants to be a better running team than that. And even as much as they like Raiola's right arm and as good as he can be, they want to be a more balanced offense than that. And so those are some of the things that they're going to take in to the game in West Lafayette. This is a game, and this is key number one, where Nebraska really has to use the fuel of that loss, right? The motivation of losing to Illinois, and turn that into something going forward. They're going to have to heat up the boilers. And by that, what I mean is this. Nebraska's got to come in and play with an edge. They have to play aggressive. They have to try to send Purdue a message early. And in sending that message to Purdue, Nebraska's going to send that message to itself. Because Nebraska has not just hasn't played with the same level of edge the last 2 weeks that I think we saw the first 2 weeks, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And so this is one of those games where if you have to call a couple of blitzes early to get the blood flowing, get the juices flowing, get somebody to make a play, maybe that's something you have to do. You have to try to set a tone early in this game. Purdue's coming off of two losses, 66-7 to Notre Dame and then 38-21 to Oregon State. My hunch is that Purdue's closer to that 38-21 team than it is that 66-7 team. But there's a famous saying, keep losing teams losing, and this is one of those circumstances. Purdue's not going to walk into this game thinking, yeah, we're going to go up 14-0 early in the game. Purdue's going to walk into this game wondering if they can compete, and Nebraska has to send a message early that Purdue cannot stay on the same turf as Nebraska. If Nebraska can send that message early, it's possible that Purdue's going to go into a little bit of a shell. They haven't fought back great in the last 2 weeks. We'll see what happens if Nebraska is able to get an early lead on Saturday. And that's not always about getting an early lead, for sure. Nebraska wants to be a four-quarter football team, but this is a circumstance where you might be able to get a team down and then kind of put them out. Second key is pregame juice boxes. This is a game where it's homecoming weekend. There's probably going to be some fans there. There's going to be some alumni coming back that want to enjoy a football game, even if Purdue isn't very good. But I've been to Ross-Ade Stadium a few seasons where they did not have large crowds there. In 2013, in 2015, in 2019, Purdue was not good in any of those years. But you know what? Nebraska lost two of those games. They lost the 2015 game. They lost the 2019 game. They probably shouldn't have lost either one, but they were not ready at the beginning of the game. Purdue just kind of controlled some of the early moments in that 2015 game. So Nebraska's going to have to bring its own juice. It's going to have to be fired up. It's going to have to bring some energy. Nebraska usually has a strip of fans down that one side of Ross-Ade Stadium, and those folks will be in the stands, but there are so many players that have not necessarily been in an experience where they've been basically in an empty stadium. And it's not going to be empty. It's going to be about half full. That'd be my hunch. They had a little bit of that last year at Michigan State, but Michigan State's fans are a little bit more loyal, a little bit more consistent, and there's just more people living in Lansing, Michigan than there is in Lafayette and West Lafayette, Indiana. So Nebraska has to bring its own energy early. This is not going to be a game where you're going to be able to feed off silencing the crowd because they're probably going to be, eating hot dogs and popcorn and being kind of quiet, wondering if Purdue's going to have a good day. Rest assured, if Purdue does have a good day, that crowd will be plenty loud by the end of the game. So Nebraska wants to keep that crowd quiet, but at the same time bring its own energy. I think that's going to be important. Final key is fourth quarter finish. Nebraska has to finish the fourth quarter. They haven't been great in fourth quarters so far this year. That's something that they want to be really good at, but they were so far ahead in the first 3 games that I just don't feel like they brought a lot of fourth quarter juice. And then against Illinois, they weren't great in the fourth quarter. They scored right at the beginning of the fourth quarter against Illinois to take a 24-17 lead. And basically from that point forward, the Illini kind of controlled the football game. And yes, Nebraska forced a turnover, and yes, Nebraska had a chance to go score a go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter, but at the end of the day, Nebraska was just a little bit further behind Illinois in that fourth quarter physically, I think emotionally, I think from a stamina standpoint, and so Nebraska has to finish this fourth quarter. It doesn't make any difference whether they're up by 10 or 21 or only up by 3 or down by 7. Finish the fourth quarter. Make those body blows early count as haymakers late. You got to break some runs. And they didn't do a great job of that against Colorado, although that was because of penalties, and against Northern Iowa. They just didn't play great in the fourth quarter. I think Nebraska needs to put together a good fourth quarter because rest assured, the game the following week against Rutgers is going to be a 4-quarter fight for sure. It's going to be a battle, absolutely, between the Huskers and the Scarlet Knights. Okay, Nebraska about a 10-point favorite against Purdue. I don't know if they're going to cover that line. I do think there's going to be some points in this game. I think Nebraska's defense will give up a couple touchdowns. I think Purdue's defense is not really good. Nebraska should have some success not only running the football, but getting some of those deep plays downfield, maybe some deep crossers. Let's see if they get Thomas Fidone a little bit more involved in this game. Fidone's only been moderately involved so far this season. Let's see if they can get him a little bit more involved. And let's see if Nebraska special teams turns a corner at the same time as well. This is a kind of a tight turf. It's a spongy turf, Bermuda grass. Nebraska has not always been great on it. You can slip a little bit on it. They've only been so-so, but Nebraska needs to get used to it. This may be the kind of turf that Nebraska eventually has in its Memorial Stadium as a grass field. Okay, well, we'll have full coverage from Ross-Ade Stadium, Evan Bland and I, and of course we'll have a whole team back here at home writing as well. Thanks for watching. I'm Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra.